Yes, it's an Among Us video. Cut me some slack, yeah, it's been a slow news week. The long-awaited Airship map has finally been added to Among Us, and it's understandable that it took a while to get things polished up because there is certainly a lot of new content. This being a popular game on the internet, it was also logical that before I'd even got the chance to play it, I had heard complaints. Apparently the new level is just much too big to be fun, and there are too many tasks to perform, it's still just a bit much. With initial reports like that, I had to try it out for myself to see whether the criticism was justified. Is the airship really too big? Or is this a case of fans reacting negatively to something new in a video game that they already know so well? It goes without saying that regardless of its size one way or the other, the airship certainly is incredibly self-indulgent. It's based on a chapter from InnerSloth's other indie hit, Henry Stickmin, a series of flash games created by Puffballs United, real name Marcus Bromander, one of the 3 core developers at the studio. As a complete random aside, I love the surname Bromander. Makes me think of a Charmander with shutter shades and a popped collar. So the airship is one enormous Easter egg, a big giant reference to InnerSloth's other work, which is itself filled with other smaller Easter eggs and references designed to delight the studio's most dedicated fans. Of course, not everyone is a hardcore InnerSloth fan. With a game this popular, only a fraction of the player base are ever going to fully appreciate the in-jokes and meta-references. Even for those who do understand the gags, it's important that the large, sprawling collection of nudges and winks doesn't get in the way of the actual core gameplay. Now, it's important for me to point out early and often that I am not an Among Us expert. Consider my half-baked opinions to be merely the jabbering of an idiot who doesn't really know what he's talking about. In all honesty, I'm not very good at Among Us. I find it very stressful. I'm a terrible liar and I get stabbed in the back a lot. I don't necessarily consider this a bad thing. If anything, I take it as a point of pride that I'm just too honest and friendly to play the game well. I'm not saying that everyone who is good at Among Us is a menace to society. I'm just saying that the skill set required to play the game is also the skill set that's required to con old ladies out of their life savings. But I digress. My point is, I honestly struggle on the simplest of Among Us maps. Something about the pressure of getting my tasks done while also giving every player around me the side eye is just too much for my salty little brain to handle, and I often end up giving up on tasks to carefully study my fellow players instead, hoping to spot who may or may not be about to do their best John Carpenter's The Thing impression. This being the case, going into the airship and wanting to get the full experience, I knew I'd have to play a little differently. I was actually going to have to do my tasks for once, at the very least, if I could find my way around the expansive new map. The first thing that struck me was not the airship's size, per se, but rather its complexity. There are a lot more nooks and crannies, maze-like corridors, and toilet cubicles. You get to choose your starting location, which splits everybody up a bit. It's literally more difficult to make your way around the level. You've got to slide down ladders, extend bridges, hop on that little floaty box thing, or simply ignore all of these and just take the long way round. All of this means that not only are there more places to hide bodies, but you're also not going to see a lot of your fellow crewmates. You're all spread out, and it's rare to get too close to each other for an extended period of time. You won't always notice when someone is acting sus. All the while, an imposter can sneak around relatively unhampered. Vents have always been useful for making a quick getaway, but in the airship they are even more useful. While all the hapless crewmates are struggling with the geography, the imposter can just zip around at will. And I can see why this is going to be frustrating for some players. The balance of power is entirely different. It's much easier for an imposter to sabotage something without being spotted, and it's harder for a crewmate to stumble upon a crime in progress. Now, that said, I actually think that this is a good thing. We're all aware that Among Us itself is not really the game. Yes, you could win by completing your tasks, but there's a reason I put that on the back burner. Among Us is a delivery system for a game of truth and lies. It's the social aspect of the game that makes it tense and engaging. This being the case, the goal in adding a new level to Among Us isn't to keep the same balance of power but with a different backdrop, it's to change up the rules so that strategies that work in one level don't work so well in another. Maybe in the Scaled you can keep an eye on a few key corridors and spot an imposter at work, but this is a lot harder in the airship. The imposter has more control of the situation, while crewmates are less organised. That's the point. It's a different set of subtle invisible rules that dictate the way the game is played. By that logic, I'd say the airship is a resounding success. It forces players to try new strategies, to play the game a different way. At the same time, I can completely understand why entrenched fans of existing Among Us levels might have a difficult time adjusting if they're already used to playing the game in a specific way. It can be hard to unlearn older levels and adapt to a new style of play. Now, I'm not personally burdened with that problem because I am shockingly bad no matter which map I play. Of course, I'm not saying that the airship is perfect. It's hard to escape the problem that if it's frustrating to explore the game map, players aren't going to want to explore. there are going to be teething pains with this new level. Just as it's hard to know what bugs will appear in a game until it's being played by thousands of people, it's also impossible to guess how a tiny change to the gameplay will affect the way people respond to a social game. The good news is that InnerSloth are always really great at listening to fan feedback and incorporating new ideas into their game. This is the reason why accounts were added into Among Us along with the Airship. I anticipate that the developers at InnerSloth are even now gathering data on how players are responding to the Airship, in anticipation of a future update which will subtly tweak the way the level handles. I don't know if we'll get anything hugely drastic, but I wouldn't be surprised if there will later be some quality of life improvements to help players get around the level a little more easily. No doubt any future changes will also trigger a wave of annoyance for players who've gotten used to the Airship's eccentricities. This is just how this kind of mass popular online game goes. But as I say, I'm far from an authority on the ins and outs of Among Us. All I can give is my opinion as someone who by all rights shouldn't be allowed anywhere near the game. Whether I'm wrong or right, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the subject in the comments below, so that I can know whether I should keep playing to discover all the flaws I've missed, or whether I should never play it again so I stop getting in your way. For DualShockers, I've been the Salty Brit. Thank you very much for watching.